All right. Whenever you're ready.
All right. Well,
Okay.
if you have any interruptions from my cats tonight?
Oh, that was
So you want to hear the George Lynch story? How I met George? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Jimmy's voice from the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was
So
like stoked to be a small part of that. It was awesome.
you were a big part of that, man. So what had happened was for years, a good friend of mine who was originally kind of he was like the lead design engineer at ESP Guitars, John Gadesi, uh, is really good friends with George because he used to build George's guitars. And like he still builds Metallica's guitars and all that kind of stuff, like, under the table type of stuff. He's amazing. So anyway, he was always going, man, I got to connect you with George. You got to, George has a tour coming up. Let me see if I can get you in there, that kind of thing. And then he would call me. I'd be like, yeah, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden he'd call me and go, well, Tommy Aldridge is doing the gig. And I'm like, well, I would choose him too. So anyway, but then, so finally what ended up happening was when Rock Bar was being built, Susie called me, the owner called me and said, hey, we're doing this kind of opening night, like a soft opening thing. We're going to do this kind of guitar contest thing as our opening night. And they called it the Guitar Demon Rock Off, I think is what it was. And so I was in a band at the time with a guy named Craig Goldie who had played with Dio, and she said Craig's going to be one of the judges for this thing, and it's kind of like the drum off for Guitar Center, like just a guitar contest. And so she said, Craig is going to be one of the judges, and George Lynch, and I would love to have you come up and be like the guest drummer, because at the end of the thing we're going to have a big jam where the judges are going to jam with the winner. And I'm like, I'll totally go do that. How much do you pay me? But anyway, and so so I go up to do this thing, and I go up for sound check, and I'm like, okay, they have this house kit sitting there, and I thought I better check this out just to see, what's what. And I sat down and I was like kind of looking at it, and George comes on stage and he's just like playing chords on his guitar, just checking the guitar rig and kind of running through it. So he's like holding these chords, and pretty soon I'm looking at the kit and I start just keeping time on the hi-hat, and all of a sudden George kind of looks at me and I look at him, and I started playing a beat, and it just turned into this jam where we went for, I don't know, Jimmy, what, 20 minutes or something, 15 minutes?
It was phenomenal to watch.
wow.
And we just kind of like connected musically, and it was
Right.
super fun, and we went through all kinds of different changes together, just everything, and so finally we stopped, and he's like, and we looked around and all the staff had come out and they were all watching, and we were like, okay. And he stops and he goes, who are you, man? And I go, I'm just some dude. And so at the end of the night, when they had the winner go up to jam, George was going to get up there and play, and he comes over to the VIP section and he's like, hey, I'm not going out there without Chris. You got to get Chris up here. And they grab me and they throw me on stage, and I'm like, and I felt really bad because they kicked the drummer off the kit, and I was like, oh shit, But
That drummer.
so George looks at me and goes, hey man, let's do that thing we did at sound check. And I was like, okay. And so we did, and at the end of the night, everybody was, having the big after party and stuff, and George had people, talking to him all night. So I didn't really get a chance to say hi, but I just sort of at the end, I walked by and I said, hey, great jamming with you, George. He's like, oh man, that was so fun. And I go, by the way, so John Gadesi is the guy's name that had been at ESP, that I think he's now at Fender, but anyway, he's the guy that that was our in-between guy. I said, by the way, John Gadesi and I were in the same kindergarten class together. And George's mouth drops open. He's like,
Wow.
what? And I go, have a good night, man. And I walked away. And then the following week, John called me and he's like, George has not stopped talking about you since San Jose. Is it okay if I give him your number? And I'm like, no, So that was it. And then George called me and said, hey, I got a thing I'm doing. Do you want to be in it? And I said, absolutely.
Nice.
That's a great story. Oh my gosh.
Thanks. So that was Project Infidelica, and he said in that conversation, he's like, "Hey, I heard you just did something with Angelo from Fishbone. Do you think he'd want to do this with us?" And I was like, "Of course he would." So that was how that started.
You done that Halloween single?
Yeah. It was called "Curse of 1,000 Mommies." Yeah, that was Angelo. "Curse of 1,000 Mommies."
I have a funny side story that happened that night as well. This guy, I can't remember his name. He's a European cat. He was always at the Rock Bar, super money guy. And after your jam had happened with George, I marched George into the vodka room to get him some drinks and make sure that the guys knew that like whatever he wanted was on the house, because Susan had already approved that, of course. And
right.
Even if she hadn't, I was going to. And
right.
This cat is at the bar and his back is turned to us. I'm talking to George, and George is like kind of hugging me. He's like, "Dude, this is so awesome. Like, I think I met my drummer, and like he's gonna hook us up with Angelo." And this was
that's rad.
Fidelica was before Ultraphonics, so it was like the two bands went hand in hand.
Right.
And this guy turns around and he goes, "Holy fucking shit, is that George Lynch?" And George Lynch is all, "I think so." And then he got to meet George, and he's a guitar player, and he's been a fan of George's for since forever. And so they ended up chilling out, and they connected and exchanged phone numbers and stuff. So it was like that whole thing was just a great vibe that night.
That was a magic night, dude. That was really fun. Yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, it's a shame that place went south. Man.
Yeah.
How many years was that? I've only gone a couple of times because it was way far for me to go from San Francisco.
You went 2 times, and we were open for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
Jimmy, they ended up moving. They ended up taking over the knitting factory in Reno, right?
Yeah. Well,
is that still open, or did they go under from there?
I don't mind fucking talking shit about this because, yeah, they ended up moving up to Reno, and
was it because rent was too expensive at the old Garden City?
They couldn't. I mean, I think that it's weird because Rob, her partner in crime, I think he basically thought that after he had worked with me and the staff that he figured it all out and wanted to do it on his own. He was a super control freak, immense egomaniac. I mean, we all have egos, but this guy was on another planet. And so they went up there. It took them a year and a half to open the venue. They were open for 4 months. 2 months into being open, they weren't paying vendors, which you don't do in Reno. It was a little here in San Jose.
Right.
And the last I heard about them, I had to go to the labor board to get paid because they refused to pay me my last check. And they ended up seizing her house. And all kinds of other bullshit went down, but they ended up like just losing. The last thing I heard was they lost $500,000 up there.
Wow.
Respect your employees and pay them. That's all I gotta say.
And the whole problem with the situation was the simplicity of it was, and I kept trying to tell them both was like, look, get out of everybody's way and let them do their job, and you're going to be successful. But they kept trying to do.
Well, and they micromanaged to death. Is that what it was?
Doing the Sebastian Bach wedding and spending over $40,000 to have and a bunch of kind of.
Oh gosh, I forgot about that.
It ended up. So I was constantly playing catch up to try and make money for the club for everything that they thought was a good idea. Like they were going behind my back and offering like 10 grand to Great White. It's like, I mean, seriously, Great White, 10 grand.
And this is after the Rhode Island fires, so
yeah, well after.
You have to command a less bill at that point. I mean, you just.
And it's normally I don't usually talk shit about my past relationships with business owners, but they were so nefarious in their dealings. Like there were so many things going on in the background that I didn't find out till after we closed shop that I was just like, wow, I'm shocked that went on.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a spoken rule or like you have a general respect to not say anything, about say anything ill. But at the same time, within your circle, there has to be chatter between you guys, right? all in the back end being, if you hear this name again at another venue,
well, and
don't
that's the
bother.
thing. I'm a big boy. I'm fine with being, kicked out of a room. It wouldn't be the first time. But the thing that bummed me out the most was that, we had a staff that were busting their ass daily to try and make that place rock and roll. And they were just the fly in the ointment to the whole operation. It was just a very weird. I mean, I could write a book just on Rock Bar, but I'm not going to because I'm not getting the exposure.
So as long as they're blackballed, then that's good, right? Okay.
Yeah, Rock Bar that place became like a second home to me. I would go up any chance I got, whether I was playing or I went up to see Wayne Finley play because he was playing with Schenker, and that was that night that Kirk showed up and did the jam with them and all that. And it's like I rode my motorcycle up there and had like the greatest time, and it was like family. But that, when you're talking about that staff, Jimmy, and stuff, man, just like the coolest people. And I've met people that I am still connected with and I still consider kind of family at that place because they really did have a good staff, truly good people.
Yeah, they did.
I just posted that video yesterday of Kirk jamming with Michael Schenker. And the reason I did it mainly was because I've never seen Kirk have such a shit-eating grin on his face. I mean, it was like a 12-year-old experiencing Christmas morning. He was so excited and so stoked. And there was a moment during that night where they were doing one of the classic UFO songs. I can't remember which. And Kirk was trying to do his thing and play solo. And then he looked over at Michael, and Michael stepped up. And it was just like watching old blues players, The Killing Floor. Michael Schenker looked up and nodded at him and just cut loose. And it was just like, and Kirk kind of backed up like, holy fucking shit, what is going on right now?
Yeah.
So badass.
Those guys, I mean, and that night, because I stayed upstairs that night at the venue, which was the best fucking thing ever at Rock Bar. But anyway, so I was walking to my room, and Kirk was in one of the rooms warming up, and he had that white Ouija board guitar in there. And so he's sitting there jamming on that, and as I walked by, I kind of looked, and we did the head nod thing of like, hey, and he's like, hey, man, what's going on? And it was like he wanted me to like go hang with him, and but I knew he was warming up, and I try to give like space. So I just, yeah, man, cool, have a good show. I'll be down there checking you out, And dude, he was so excited. It was so cool to see that.
And it's like I've worked with Kirk in a couple of different situations, and it's like he's always been, the Metallica guy. But that was one of the first times I ever saw where he was like, "Holy shit, I'm playing with fucking Michael Schenker." Like, in the Bay Area, no less. And
Schenker is like George, where when they get in a situation like that, those guys really turn it up and really kill it.
Oh yeah.
Schenker ruled that night. He was insane.
Yeah, it was amazing. And luckily, I mean, I'm going on these YouTube searches now, and I'm finding all this video footage from the Omni to now that I'm like, I had no idea that shit was even out there. And I found a whole bunch of videos of Schenker with Phil Demmel, Kirk, plus the fact that, Francis Buchholz and Herman Rarebell were his rhythm section. It's like, three parts of the Scorpions, basically.
Yes.
Another funny story is when we were in the vodka bar, all the killer wine was pulled out for Herman and Francis because they're big wine drinkers. And I remember walking up to Herman and going, "How are you doing?" He's all, "This wine is delectable." Like, oh, what?
Yeah.
Like the dude who did fucking, Always Somewhere is fucking drinking wine in our venue right now. Like, fuck it,
Oh man.
Dude.
I've always wanted to meet him just to like practice my German with someone that of that stature. Be like, yeah, dude. I'll be like, yeah, man, I practiced my German with a Scorpion.
Super down to earth cats, dude. I'm not just saying that. Like, I was so shocked at how receptive they were to me being kind of a fanboy. In fact, Jeremy, if you haven't seen this, there's a YouTube video of them rehearsing with Schenker in some little shitty rehearsal spot, and it's magical, dude. They run all these fucking Schenker hits, and it's just like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Well, it's like I was in the tour bus with Wayne because Wayne was playing with Schenker, right? And so I'm in the lounge of the tour bus with Wayne, Michael Schenker, Herman, and Francis, and I'm like looking at Herman going, "You wrote Rock You Like a Hurricane." Like, come on, dude, come on. And that kind of thing to me, you can't say anything. I was just sitting there like, yeah.
And his solo album, Herman's a German, is fucking amazing. It's like a who's who of everybody in rock and roll on that record. It's like, wow.
And if you watch him visually, if you turn the volume off and you watch Herman play drums, it doesn't look like it sounds. He has a magic sound that comes out of the drum kit, the way he plays it, but he looks very unorthodox the way he plays, but he sounds so good that it just, God, I mean, dude, I couldn't believe how good he sounded at those shows. And I think I saw 4 or 5 of the shows on that tour, and it was just, God, the guy just has such a way of hitting the drums and making them sound good.
Pops, man. And it's like people don't realize, he's one of those rare birds that like doesn't get the juice that he deserves, because
I know
that guy was a solid fucking drummer, man. And the crazy thing is that he could play beyond what he did in the Scorpions, but it was like a Bonham thing. He always pulled back and just decided to play to the song in the pocket. It was like,
yeah. Oh, that just magic days, man. Oh, love it. Good memories.
Sorry, we just fucking rambled on forever, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh no,
What else?
It's your choice. Like I said, your choice, Jimmy. Whatever you.
It's your birthday, bro.
It's my choice. Where's Catwoman at?
But I will say I zone out with my brothers on tech bullshit too. But my other brothers who's not, that he's like, dude, what the fuck, dude? He's like, I went and smoked a cigarette and took a piss and made a sandwich. Like, you ready to move on? But no, dude, that was some awesome freaking storytelling and just fucking bullshit rambling. I'm trying to Google YouTube the videos. What year was that from? Was that the 2015, the Rock Bottom?
Which one? The show that they did for us, or
the Shankar ones, the rehearsals that.
The rehearsals. That was right before they did the tour with the 5 different singers with Graham Bonnet, Barden, and all those guys. So it's like probably 3 years ago those came out. If what I'll do is I'll look and see if I can find it, and then I'll just shoot you the link through email.
All right.
Jimmy,
cool.
You went to that show,
good.
right? That was the San Jose Civic, that one with all the singers?
Dude, yeah, I went to that show. And it's like, really hard to get.
Sounds like there's a story there, so please continue.
Not
awesome.
Kind of, not really. I mean, it's just like, I'm not jaded, but I've seen so many shows that it really has to be something magical for me to kind of lose my shit a little bit. And I got tickets to the show from the venue and brought a friend, and I was really going to see Graham Bonnet, who I hadn't seen in years, since Alcatraz days. And
with who on guitar?
Michael Schenker. It was the MSG group with like 5 different singers, all
Okay, but I mean, when you saw Alcatraz.
Oh, it was with Yngwie.
Wow.
I didn't see the one with Vi, which I wish I had, because that's also another great lineup. But
that record is amazing. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
But by the way, you saw the thing that Phil Dimmel did with Graham Bonnet, right?
Hey, after you're done with this story, can I tell you about when I auditioned for Graham Bonnet?
Fucking yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went to the show, and I don't like going to big shows these days because it's, I don't deal with the tourists very well. I mean, the rookie showgoers. But I had to go see Schenker in a big room because I hadn't seen him in a big room in a long time. And that show was so crazy. Like, I was with Richard Alexander Ross. I was so into it that I ended up recording the whole Rock Bottom complete with the Schenker show on Facebook Live. And Richard's all, I've never seen you lose your shit this much at a rock show. I was just like, this is unreal. What's going on right now? Are you hearing this? And you can hear me on the audio feed going, I can't believe this is fucking happening. And Schenker's just going for it. It was just like, holy shit, dude. Unreal.
Yeah, that was a great show. Totally exceeded. I mean, you saw the lineup and was like, okay, that's gonna be awesome. But when you're actually in there and it was just really amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Was
the album Schenker did with Gary Barton, the one with Let Sleeping Dogs Lie and On and On and Attack of the Mad Axemen. It's like that record is one of the darkest Schenker albums I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
But I mean, Michael Schenker's been one of those cats that he's had the pleasure, kind of like Richie Blackmore, of having several different singers that every one of them made sense. You know what I mean? It's like, and
good point.
And you have to be. There's not a lot of bands that can pull that off, and so it's like, Michael Schenker's on stage, and you're watching his entire history with every singer except Phil Mogg, of course, and it's just like it was breathtaking. I was shocked.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Anyway, what's your story there, man?
Oh shit, we're still recording this, huh? Okay. Well, I'll. All right.
Juicy.
It's not too juicy, but yeah, we should pause it probably because I'm trying to be. I have to be a little careful.
It's okay.
This meeting is being recorded. Okay. Wow. I didn't even care about mine. I let shit fly on the last couple of times I've been here.
Yeah. No,
but it's dealer's choice, right? If the person respects it, they're like, "Hey guys, I'm sorry, can we not?" Some people care, some people don't.
Well, I'm of the mindset now. It's like, I mean, what are you going to do? Tell me I can't book nightclubs again? Guess what? I'm not booking nightclubs right now, so I'm not losing anything.
You're good.
You're not going to fuck. You can't harm me in any way. And I think,
you can't fire me because I quit.
I mean, yeah, right. It's like the reality situation. I was like, for example, that thing that's going on with Live Nation right now. Like, how dare?
I was gonna bring that up. But I knew you would bring it up before I would bring it up again. Hey, Jimmy, do you know who's on right now with us? But he's not sure.
Yeah, I see Alexis Olson in there somewhere.
Yes.
What's up, Alexis? He's probably muted right now, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Me and Alexis go back a way. In fact, I learned a lot from Alexis Olson when I was during the Omni days when he was managing bands and whatnot. Yeah,
no, he was one of the first people I'd met, and he actually helped me too when I started working for writing for The Informant, and he turned me on to the Foundations Forum. He's like, "March, you need to go to this thing." Like, what is it? He's so it was Foundations Forum, I think the second year of Foundations Forum in '89. Then I went to the one in '90. So yeah, he kind of educated me. He's like, "Oh, this is like the industry thing, and all these bands will be there, showcases, all kinds of cool stuff, panels, discussions, and So he kind of mentored me in that beginning part and just kind of showed me some stuff. So yeah, welcome, Alexis.
Dude, that whole thing that went down with Live Nation getting caught in that memo that Rolling Stone that got leaked to them, like the audacity that they would tell bands if they canceled that they would expect 2 times their guarantee, but then only guarantee the bands 20 to 25% of their guarantee. It's like,
yeah.
Was it like that Live Nation made some atrocious, like, was it 9 point something million or $1 billion, and they're now we're financially devastated. You're not financially devastated. You need to start paying your CEOs a lot less money. That's what you need to do.
Right.
Yeah, I was reading that article. It was just like, oh my gosh, just
yeah. And that was what partially
horrific.
Contos and I were talking about last night, where it's like, again, I'm going to go on my soapbox. It's like, it's time for bands to start taking their power back and start thinking of new ways to get to their audience, because now's the time to get in their face because they've got nothing else to do,
Yep.
We have another secret user. Who is that?
I wonder.
Let me just say, for any new users, when he gets a soapbox, it is most epic.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you see me?
can see the voice, I don't think.
Okay, hang on. Let me see here.
Yeah, you just press on the camera part.
Okay.
Red.
Oh, there. Okay, hang on. Oh, wait.
Bring the internet.
Hang on. Oh, there it is. I see it. Okay, start my video. Hey. Okay. Hi.
Did Grand Bonnet's people shut you down or what?
Yeah, that's what it was. No, I'll tell you something, man. So Jimmy, I don't know if you know this. Okay, I got another good story for you guys. You want to hear something quick one?
Yes.
Okay. So ever since 1998,
sorry, one sec. Is this recording appropriate or?
Yeah, this is okay. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure.
So I've been a huge Fuel fan, the band Fuel. Okay, and it was ever since I heard Shimmer, their first single. I was in a Tower Records in Long Beach, California, and I was like begging the staff to tell me who it was on the PA in the store, and they didn't know who it was because they said, "Oh, it's just music being played," and I'm like, "Who is this? I have to buy this right now," and they're like, we don't know, whatever. So anyway, I went home and I waited, and one night I was watching MTV. And that song came on. I'm like, that was the song. And I stood in front of the TV and I waited till the end of the song and figured out who it was. And I went straight to the Warehouse Records and I bought it on the spot. Okay. And ever since then, I've been a huge Fuel fan. In fact, that is my Fuel tattoo. Okay. Anyway, so years later, I had an opportunity to do a thing with Fuel, and I became really good friends with Jeff Abercrombie, the original bass player, and I was renting studio space from him in North Hollywood, so at Thud Studios. So anyway, Jeff came to me one day and he's like, "Dude, you're fucking in here every day. You're a soldier, and you're such a good drummer, and you're so disciplined." He goes, Brett Scallions, Brett and I, the original singer, are thinking about doing something, and this is in 2009. He said, "We're thinking about doing something. I wonder if you want to play drums." And I go, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I go, "So you guys going to go to the local, bar and do some cover songs?" He goes, "No, we're going to do the first 2 Fuel records live." And my knees are shaking under the table, right? Because I'm like, holy fucking shit, this is one of my favorite bands ever, So anyway, he goes, "Hey, so Carl Bell, the original drummer or the original guitar player who wrote all the songs," he's like, "Carl's not going to be involved. So do you know of a guitar player?" And I'm like, "Well, my buddy Vic Johnson, who plays with Sammy Hagar, has the year off because Hagar is doing the first Chicken Foot record. I bet Vic could do it." And he's like, "Okay, we'll give him a call." I was like, "Call Vic." And he's like, "Oh my God, I totally would do this. I love Fuel, So Vic starts learning the records, flies down, stays at my house. We start rehearsing with Jeff and in my studio. And then, so we're at lunch the next day at this Philly cheesesteak place in North Hollywood. And Jeff goes, "So where do you guys want to play? Do you think, Vic, do you think we could get Sammy to let us go play at Cabo Wabo down there in, Mexico? And could we maybe book a House of Blues gig or something?" And Vic goes, "Well," and he just and Vic is one of the greatest people in the world. I literally talked with him for 2 hours just shooting the shit yesterday. And he goes, "Yeah, well, Hagar said we should just get a set together, and as long as we can use the name Fuel, we could be the opening band on the Chicken Foot tour. They'll kick Queensryche off the bill as the opening band."
What?
Oh.
Okay, and this is true shit.
Wow.
Okay, I'm not exaggerating. And so Jeff drops his fork, literally drops his fork, and he goes, "Wait a minute, can you say that again?" And Vic's like, "Oh yeah." And I could hear Vic when he was talking on the phone to Hagar. I could hear Hagar going, "How's it going, man? Is Chris a bad motherfucker like you said? Is Jeff a bad motherfucker like you said?" That kind of thing. So anyway, Vic's like, "Yeah, man, they'll totally hook us up. We'll fly to the gigs on Hagar's jet. Everything's paid for. All we got to do is just fucking go, do it." And so, Jeff goes, he didn't even finish his lunch. He goes, "All right, listen, I'm going to Brett's house right now. You guys are going to have to sign on our LLC. I need your W-9s. I'm going to go hook this up. We're going to call the attorneys. We're doing this right now." And Vic goes, yeah, well, the first show is, whatever date at the, behind Harrah's in Tahoe, that big Rincon amphitheater. It's sold out. It's 6,000 seater. It's already sold out. And we finish at the Gibson Amphitheater in LA, which I think is 6,000, and that's sold out. So he's like, we're gonna do all these. And so we're just like, holy fucking shit. And Vic was just like, yeah, that's what we're doing, So anyway, Jeff takes off. He goes, you guys finish lunch, go back to the studio, start jamming. I'll be back. So he goes to Brett's house. He does his thing. He comes up, shows up. We played till like 2 a.m. and we just fucking killed it. And Jeff is like, we're better on our first night than Fuel ever was. He's like, we're going to be, this is going to be amazing, right? Anyway, and so the next day, I had to, Vic had to go home, so I took him to the airport, and he lives up north of Hagar. So anyway, I drop him off at the airport. Hey man, see you soon, whatever. And he's like, hey, have you heard from Jeff today? And I'm like, no, I haven't heard from him. He's like, all right. So he gets home and he calls me. And he's like, hey, just wanted to let you know I'm home. It's all good. And he goes, by the way, have you heard from Jeff? And I said, no, I haven't heard from him. And he goes, Chris, this thing isn't going to happen. And I go, what are you talking about? And he goes, I've been through this kind of shit before so many times. Something's fucked up. It's not going to happen. Something happened with Brett. And he's like, I would be surprised if this works out. And I'm like, but look at what's going on. He goes, yeah, there's something, whatever. Anyway, the bottom line was that Brett's manager did not want to then get involved with Hagar's people because he was afraid Hagar's people were, that was Irving Azoff and all those guys. And he was afraid of their management taking over his meal ticket. So he advised Brett not to do it. So Brett is like, hey, Jeff, I just don't think it would be cool for us to rely on Chickenfoot for our success. Let's just do it on our own, man. And so Jeff goes, yeah, man. So Brett's got Yogi Lonich on guitar and Ken Schock on drums. And those guys are great. They're fucking amazing studio cats and they're good dudes and all that. So it was like that was then Fuel, and they rented a motorhome, and they went to the East Coast, and they played 7 shows in 10 days, and the biggest crowd they had was 200 people. The smallest was 75.
The industry is eating. Why is the industry?
And so anyway, so Jeff does these 7 shows and he quits the band and flies home, and I don't think he and Brett have spoken since. But anyway, I told Brett that story because he didn't know all the details. It was just that his manager was telling him stuff. And so Brett and I have hung out since then, and he's like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? We should have done that. Can we still do that? I'm like, no, it's too late. I'm sorry. But anyway, where I'm going with this is that as it relates to, say, Live Nation, at that point when that was going on, we were starting to get offers to do shows beyond the Chickenfoot thing. And there were some pretty good sort of guarantees being thrown at us. And I said to the guys, because I have a degree in finance, I'm like, we should set up our own finance company or connect with a finance company to be our own ticket agency. Because if there's a show with a guarantee for $20,000 and that means X amount of tickets get sold, but then the bots go in and they buy it as the agency, and then they jack up the ticket price and they make a 100% markup on that. That all goes to somebody else and the artist doesn't get any of it. We should be our own finance company and we'll be in charge of that. We'll make the money. And they're like, right. That's a great idea. I think, honestly, Jimmy, that's what's going to happen with this Live Nation thing. I think bands are going to say, fuck you, and cut out the middleman and start doing their own thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, and it's funny because, what's his face, Exodus, Gary said that,
I saw it.
He's terrified that it's gonna ruin the metal and heavy music community. But I really, I don't think that that's the case. I really think that this is going to be the game changer for a lot of artists that rely on playing live for their financial ends to meet, and putting food on the table. It's like, and like I said before, it's like the people that don't want to come to the table, well, then fuck them. If you don't want to fucking move forward and you want to be stuck to a dinosaur legacy like the recording industry,
right?
Go for it,
Yeah, I do think that Live Nation has had a 1-2 punch where they had this thing with the Metallica tickets last year, and then they've got this thing now. They're getting such bad press. I can't imagine the CEO not getting removed, but also I can't imagine that there won't be a change in the model as to how it's done.
Well, them and Ticketmaster in bed with each other. The issue is, though, is it's going to be like I've mentioned on here before, and I've said on Facebook that they're going to come to the table too late, and people are not going to be endeared with them because we're going to come out of this crisis, and everybody's going to be all, why am I spending $150 to see this show when I can watch this band live in my house for $20?
Right.
And get a discount on merch and not have to spend, and also on top of that, like with the drive-in theater concept that I'm working on, I'm telling all the vendors already right out the gate, you're not going to sell a $12 to $22 beer. You're going to sell a $5 beer. You're going to sell a $6 to $7 call mixed drink because you're going to sell more of those drinks if they're not, the Shoreline was charging $22 for a 60 can of
I know.
Corona. Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, I mean, that's why everyone pre-drank there, but damn it. See, I had a train of thought, and then Jimmy just derailed it with that alcohol price comment.
Well, he was talking about the drive-in thing, and with Live Nation getting kind of derailed.
Yeah. So buy the dip when Live Nation drops off, because they will come back. Because I think at some point there's going to be some sort of synergy, right?
Yeah,
there's going to be. I think the bands are going to be able to come back with some sort of, legalese, or they're an LLC and they have, corporate rights and all that, a board behind them if they're big enough, to have that weight behind them, that legal weight. So then they could say, okay, Live Nation, you can keep your ticket sales and whatever else you guys make at this physical location. We're hosting it online. Anything we make goes between us and our management and our people. We're cutting you out.
Right.
I think that's going to be the future. So Live Nation will still be there, but the negative press is hurting their price on their stock.
Yeah.
But they're still not going away.
They're huge. No, I don't see them getting completely blown out, but I think it's kind of the thing where, like, it's so easy, it's so convenient for like a band to book a House of Blues tour and go, Live Nation's going to just handle the whole thing, and they'll insure the shows and they'll do all this stuff, so if anything happens, Live Nation has the deep pockets to cover us. And I think now it's going to be the kind of thing where they go, no.
Or it's enough realization that they can do it, with a little bit of legwork, a little bit of, how do I insure? What do I have to do? Someone in finance, or someone in insurance, or someone in, I don't know.
I know. Well, I'm
business major.
The other thing is I've been seriously considering just starting to do adult films to help augment this. So.
Hey, you know what? I would pay to see you and Jimmy.
I mean,
was that too far?
Featured in
it's a roast.
The Attack.
Yeah, it's a roast, not a birthday party. It's a roast, a Jimmy roast.
Sorry, honey.
But seriously, man, it's such an interesting time, and I do believe there's an opportunity for some real positive change. And Jimmy, you know what, man? I mean, I think, dude, that like when you've got an eye on live performance coming back and ways to structure shows, I think you could do some things on a bigger scale that some of these companies like Live Nation would be willing to listen to because of your experience. There's creativity that needs to come into the picture, dude.
That would be nice. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think the future of Live Nation is going to be top 40 acts. I think that they're going to lose their hold on the, down and dirty, earthy acts that they've had a hold on for years. I think that that's going to separate, and they're going to be just basically a top 40 radio station at that point. I mean, at least that's what I'm hoping. I mean, I'll be honest with you. In my opinion, the demise of Live Nation would be one of the greatest things that ever happened, because I think that they have brutalized the music industry. They've been like the record labels in the 2000s. You know, they're making way more markup than the artist is making. The artist is out there putting in the work, and the label's sitting back on their couch and just collecting money.
Again, dude, think about it. A 20,000 seater, okay, with an average ticket price of say $50, right? And the band gets a $500,000 guarantee, right? And the total ticket sales from that, by the time of the markup and the scalpers, there's probably close to $10 million changing hands, and the band only gets a $500,000.
Yeah, and then on top of that, the artist has to pay 30 to 35% of their merch to the house. I mean,
correct.
Fuck off.
And what's crazy, as a music fan, I don't mind paying the money. What pisses me off is knowing that it goes to Ticketmaster or that. Like, I don't mind paying the money to see a band I love, knowing that they're getting the money. That's why when you go to a live show and you buy a T-shirt or something like that, I don't mind paying a little bit more, because I'm hoping that money goes to the band. It helps them pay for a hotel room, put gas in the tank, that kind of stuff. But when half of the money goes to a ticket vendor, that's what really pisses people off. Like, I'll go to the city and I'll go to the Warfield and I'll buy a ticket at the Warfield. I'll say, hey, I'm gonna go down to the Warfield and buy a ticket at the door, not because I'm cheap, just because I want to give it to the venue. I want to give it to the musicians.
Thank you.
I mean, and that's the way it's supposed to be. The problem, I mean, you know, but the problem is like, you know, the artist is now making 20 to 25% off the bottom, you know, after expenses. And that's just not right, in my opinion. You know what I mean? The house, I mean, when I ran nightclubs, my bonus point structure for back end was the band were always making out like bandits. And that's why I think I was successful with the model I did, because bands knew that if they came in a $5,000 guarantee and I sold the room out, it was 75% over $8,500. So my back end was very small. So they were walking out with anywhere from $12,000 to $20,000, depending on the price. And it was like, that's why I kept getting shows like Nine Inch Nails and No Doubt and Pennywise and all these gigantic bands, Simple Minds, because they knew that they were going to make money when they played for me. I was not going to play hardball with them. I was going to give them everything I could in the house, and I was going to make all my money off the bar.
Right. Well, put it this way. I have friends. God, I can't believe we're recording this still, but I'll tell you anyway. So I have friends that will do shows at venues that will hold a couple thousand people, and they'll do the show. They'll get free tickets for the show, knowing that they're going to fill the venue with 2,000 people, right? Alcohol sales are going to be $25 per person, is going to, on average, $25 per person is what the average person is going to spend at a show. So the venue knows that they're going to make $50,000, period, right? And then whoever's the talent buyer or whoever's putting on the show goes, yeah, so we'll give the band a couple $1,000. They're just happy to be here. They're a tribute band or a bunch of tribute bands or whatever. So they'll do that, and the venue is making ridiculous money, dude. Yeah.
Well, how many musicians do we know musicians are not supposed to be financiers. I mean, they don't understand that end of it. It's like, you know, another thing that we did, you know, even in the rock bar days, was like, I was always telling bands, like, you know, I had a couple of, you know, I had this band called Fleetwood Mac. They were a Fleetwood Mac tribute band, and they
would be popular today in the COVID environment with the masks.
Yeah, right. They were putting me on a $1,500 guarantee. And I went, look, if we do the numbers that I think we're going to do, you're going to walk out with $500 to $7,500.
Right.
I said, just trust me on this. And sure enough, we ended up doing like almost 565 people paid.
Right.
A $25 ticket for a cover fucking band. And they ended up like going, oh shit. And now they're doing corporate gigs making $20,000 to $30,000 because I introduced them to the art of the spreadsheet. Like, this is how you work your number. Like, don't come in and just fight for this $1,500. Let me offer you $800 because trust me, you're going to make 20-fold or more of that.
Right. No, that's great, man. I love that.
Now, at the end of the day, really what that boils down to is that, and yes, I don't care if you can hear, honey. Today's youth too, but in my generation, but I can't speak for everyone on this call, there has to be financial education at a younger age, so we're aware of how things work, or ticket sales, or percentage of the cut, or all this other crap. It's like people make so many stupid ass decisions because they just don't understand the bigger picture of how all this shit works.
Right.
And that's guys a squabble. That's what just kind of like in my head.
Well, and you're talking about creatives. Creatives aren't, a lot of creatives, they're like, I'll be honest, I got into it for the money. I mean, you didn't get into it for the money. You got into it for the art. And that's cool. It's always nice to have one guy or a manager that is aware of how to make you the most money on your art.
That's an honest person.
Right.
That's also a big thing.
They don't look at the bigger picture. They're like willing to take $500 when they're not realizing they can walk out with $3,000 if they play the numbers right. They're just happy to play, and God bless them for that. I mean, I was that guy for years. I've toured and made nothing. Being on the other side of the desk helped me to realize, holy shit, the potential for bands to make money in a room that I book is like.
Exactly. I mean, doing it out of love, but also doing it out of, a financial gain. If you find a perfect balance between the two, then holy shit, your life is freaking made. You're in the sun.
Well, the high of the show only lasts for that 50 minutes to an hour and a half of the show. And while you're traveling overnight to go to that place 13 hours away, and you're looking at your bank statement, it says you have minus $25 in your bank account, that kind of shakes you into reality. It's like, why is this going on?
God bless direct deposit. That's my goal in music, is to have a gig with direct deposit, because man, that's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Now, is there like a musician no, I mean, because I know musicians have managers, but I mean, is there like a corporation that you guys can all join, like an alliance? Maybe it has like a 401k or some bullshit. So all of your, so they help out a little bit? Nothing?
There's a musicians union, but it's not ideal. Yeah. So.
Damn, that sucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of do it on your own. But the thing of it is that usually, like, if a band is doing well and they get good management, the management is going to put together something for the band. But for most, like, kind of mid-level bands, it's sort of like, hey, whatever you get, you get.
And I'm thinking mid-level and below. I mean, I know the rich guys can wipe their own ass, or have someone wipe their ass for them.
Right.
And how many bands do you and I personally know, Chris, that have been ripped off by their managers? I mean, to this very day, it's like the saddest thing I've ever heard. I mean, the King's X story. Nobody knew Sam was taking so much money off the top.
Yeah. No, it's it's tragic, and I know probably more artists than not that, have really not made what they should have made, or had it taken, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So do most people get away with it?
Yes.
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, they do.
And not only that, but most people get away with it because they wrote the contract that the artist didn't understand or wasn't willing to have somebody take a look at. They saw the golden ring and signed this contract, not realizing that the finer points of the contract are, it's like, I'm gonna just go back to the basics real quick. When a record label comes at you and says, we're going to give you $50,000 for a recording budget, that's recoupable by the label. So they're not just giving you $50,000. That means after they paid that $50,000 and marketing costs and whatever else, artwork fees and whatever else goes on, that band's in the tune of $250,000 off the bat. That $50,000.
Wait a minute. It's an IOU rather than a write-off?
It's an IOU.
It's actually something else. It's actually an advance on the artist's royalties. That comes out of the artist share. the label makes 100% profit, but the recording budget generally comes out of the artist share, and the artist has to pay back that. And when I managed bands was a long time ago, but you're lucky to get 12% of the album sales.
Right.
Everything is
That 12% would have to pay back the tour support, the video budget, the recording budget. Meanwhile, there's another 78% left over that the record company's taking. And that's not the part that's paying for the advances.
Correct.
Hey, Alexis, how are you, by the way?
Hi, Jimmy. Happy birthday.
Thanks, man.
Hey, have you guys seen the movie or the documentary called Artifact that's about 30 Seconds to Mars?
Yes.
No, I haven't.
It's really good. It's really worth seeing, but they signed a really bad record deal with EMI, and it goes into all the numbers and all the details, but they had a deal after their first, I think they did 2 records, and then their third record hit, or as they did 1 record and their second record hit or whatever, but they were very successful. They were touring, they were playing arenas all over the world, and they were $2 million in debt to EMI heading in to do their next album, which became This Is War. And it's about the making of that record. And in that process, EMI was taken over by a firm called Terra Firma, which was basically a capital group, money group, by this gentleman's name was Guy Hand, was the head of it. And he had no idea about the music business, but he was a financier. And so he thought, I'm just going to do this, and I'll strong arm the artists, and we're going to do this thing. So they ended up suing 30 Seconds to Mars because 30 Seconds to Mars opted out of their contract, saying, look, we've sold all these records, we've done all these tours, and we still owe you $2 million. Something isn't right. We're opting out of our contract and they found a loophole, so they did it legally. They sued them. They sued 30 Seconds to Mars for $30 million. And it's all about that. But the documentary is actually great because it really shows how all of that goes down.
Yeah, it's a hard watch.
Tip. Okay, thanks for the tip. Hey,
Yeah.
Chris, my friend Doug is on because I told him, I'm like, you got to join. This guy's played with Vic Johnson. So can you talk a little bit about Vic?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Doug, are you there?
Yeah, I am here. Thank you, March. Hi, everyone. Happy birthday, Jimmy.
Thanks, man.
Hey, Doug, so you're a fan of Vic?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I met Vic when he was playing in the Bus Boys. Remember the Bus Boys?
Yeah, that's when I became a fan. I was seeing him on television.
Okay. So Vic and I played at the Whiskey. The first time I played at the Whiskey in Hollywood was I was 15 years old. So my drum tech had to drive me because I only have my learner's permit. But anyway, so I was in a band with the bass players. The bass player in my band was my best friend, and his brother is Michael Anthony, the bass player for Van Halen. Anyway. So of course the guys in Van Halen knew the guys in the Bus Boys, they know Vic and all that stuff. So anyway, this was long before Hagar and all that. But so this would have been in about 1982, I think, something like that. Anyway, we played at the Whiskey, and the guys in my band, when we finished our set, said, "Did you see the Bus Boys in the audience?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" And they go, "Yeah, they were right in front. They were totally cheering us on." And I'm like, the Bus Boys are one of my favorite fucking bands. I've got Minimum Wage Rock and Roll. Their record is one of my favorite records. Anyway, sure enough, we walked outside, and there's Vic Johnson, Brian O'Neill, the singer, and then his brother Kevin O'Neill, the bass player. And we ended up hanging out with those guys and talking. And I was such a fanboy. I asked them for their autographs. And Vic said, "Hey, man, we should hang out sometime." And I'm like, "Okay." And he hands me his autograph, and his phone number was there. So the next day, I waited until like 10 o'clock, which is as long as I could wait. And I call him up, and I'm like, "Hey, man, it was great meeting you last night." Anyway, Vic and I have been really good friends ever since.
That's awesome.
He's one of my favorite people in the world. He's the most down-to-earth, great guy. and he's in that band The Circle with Sammy Hagar, Michael Anthony, and Jason Bonham, and he is just he's a good human, and he's a phenomenal guitar player. And I've known him since he got in the Wabos, and I remember when he was playing with Dr. Dre, and he was doing all the studio sessions with Dre. He was there the day that the police, or that what's his name, Suge Knight's people showed up with guns to try and take back the master tapes from Dre at his house. And the police helicopters showed up, and Vic and one of the other guys were in Dre's like side office hiding under a desk because they were waiting for the gunshots to start. Yeah.
That's scary.
Vic quit. He said he was working at a bike shop in Long Beach, and his pager would go off, and that meant he had to go to Dre's to record. He'd go to Dre's, record, get his check, get the fuck out, and then, the next whatever, that was what he did. And then when that happened, his pager would go off and he never responded. And then one day he was working at the bike shop, and the guy goes, "Hey man, this guy's on the phone. He says he's Sammy Hagar." And Vic's like, "What?" And he goes, and he picks up the phone. He's like, "Hey man, this is Sammy Hagar. I got your number from your wife. Or I got your number at work from your wife. I got this band I'm putting together, and do you want to come up to Northern California and audition?" And that was it. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I heard that he was a really cool guy. A friend of mine down here, Rob, he owns a Magic Box. They do distortion overdrive type pedals.
Yeah.
So Vic endorses the one called the Filthy Lucre.
Right on. Yeah.
He was a really cool guy. That's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, Vic introduced me to a guy named Bob Daspit, who is a producer, recording engineer, composer, an amazing guitar player. And he was Sammy Hagar's producer for a long time. But Bob has co-produced and mixed. He did the Project Infidelica record that I did with George Lynch and Angelo from Fishbone. And then he did the same, he co-produced and mixed the Ultraphonics record that I did with George and Corey Glover. And so Vic introduced me to Bob and was like, "This guy knows how to work Pro Tools like nobody's business." And Bob writes plugins for Pro Tools and shit. He's fucking amazing. Yeah. And Bob has a pedal company called Westco Pedals, and I think Vic is doing some stuff with them as well. And that drummer Kurt Pescara.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my Vic Johnson stuff. But Vic is truly. I'm telling you, man. So we were Vic and I, our joke is we were in Fuel for 5 minutes together because it just didn't work out. But Vic is a fucking unbelievable guitar. Did you see the thing they did for Right Now with Hagar and all that, the COVID sessions? Yeah.
Everything they've been putting out has been magic lately.
I told him that, Jimmy. I told him that yesterday. I was like, Vic, I can't wait for your next video because you guys are so good in every one you do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And it's cool how many people are watching that now. They've got a new life with a younger audience now. Their YouTube rankings have gone through the fucking roof in the last 2 months.
When they play live, they're going to go play all that shit. And the thing that I told Vic, too, is I said, it's really smart that you guys are keeping these videos short because, the average watcher is going to be a minute and a half max, and then they're out. And he goes, yeah, that was one thing that Hagar was really smart about. He was like, yeah, we got to keep these videos short. We can't be doing the full version of the song.
Yeah, and Vic can pull off the fucking Eddie Van Halen shit.
Right?
Like Eddie Van Halen. Wow.
And Vic is so funny because, I'll give him compliments. I'll fanboy out for a minute, and I'll be like, dude, playing that fucking 12-string, the way you played Right Now is so good. And he's like, oh, right on. And that's all I'll say. And I'll be like, I know, I'm not supposed to say it, but fuck,
You guys actually know the reason why they have to have such short videos these days?
Tell me.
So this has been a while since I studied it, but from what I remember, it was because there was too many camera changes that would take your attention away, like on TV or whatever else. There's too many shiny objects, so it's basically creating this generation of ADD when it wasn't really ADD. And now subsequently, because I'm an early 80s child myself, so subsequently, so I'm fucked. My kid is completely screwed because she's got all kinds of distractions. So that's why everything is so short. You look at TikTok, you look at, the other ones, and they're just little informational snippets because people's attention span can't sit there and absorb anything longer than a minute or two. And it's personally, I think it's disgusting because how do you learn about something? How do you learn to love music if you can only hear like 5 seconds of it?
Well, I
heard the YouTube statistic was around 30 seconds. If you don't have their full attention within 30 seconds, they're out.
Oh,
yeah, and it's funny because as a drummer, I'll see these guys play and I'll go, wow, he or she can just rip it up. But then when I see them in a band situation, it's a different thing, man.
Don't even get me started on that.
Yeah, there's just like the attention span of a gnat, that saying. But it's true because we look at the stats for videos and we look at the drop off rate and it's like, holy crap, they like barely gave it any time before they're like done. They're off to the next thing. So that's why, do you guys use TikTok like to promote? Because my daughter's all over it. She kind of turned me on to it, but it's kind of brilliant. It's like 15 seconds or I think 30, but that's it. And it's a little teaser, right?
Yeah,
I saw Judi Dench on TikTok. Judi Dench was dancing with her grandkid, but that's all I know about it.
I'm gonna like to build my following, to increase my followers and all that. You guys don't. I shouldn't be saying this because we're recording it, but I'm gonna have my breasts enhanced next week. So
you're doing porn and you're gonna have like.
Nice. Yeah, because I'll do those shots where it's that and they have that angle and.
Well, I'm halfway there because I'm at that age where I've already got boobs, so it's all good.
Boobs.
It'd be like me and you've always had them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm proud of mine. I'm really happy with them.
No, I hate mine. They've been with me my whole life, man. Seriously, since like 5 years old, dude. It was like I'm looking at these other kids in kindergarten. I'm like, how come you don't have what I have? And I look at the girls and I'm like, oh shit. I don't think that's right.
So, March, are you tripping balls that Chris Moore has come in and like basically given like rock and roll legacy stories right now?
See,
dude,
Jimmy,
I'm going crazy over it.
I said it's Jimmy's birthday on Sunday, but we don't do this on Sunday, so let's make it Jimmy's birthday party and Jimmy's choice. While I'm like cranking away trying to write that Death Angel story this whole week because I was telling the guys the transcription of that 2.5 hour recording chopped off at 54 minutes. So this whole week I've been working on that story. So, but yeah,
I'll
Jimmy
tell you
has
what,
the best friends.
Stories. Alexis Olson has many, many stories.
I know. So,
I don't know. I think I might have forgot all of those by now.
Well, we usually run for another half an hour, so if you happen to think of one right now.
I don't know. I think most of those people made me sign a non-disclosure agreement.
So joining Alexis, so a friend of Jimmy's, like everyone knows Alexis, but and you said you used to manage bands. When I first met Alexis, it was like 1988, 89. Someone said, oh, he's the manager of Mordred. You need to talk to him. Alexis knows everybody and knows a lot of stuff. You need to talk to Alexis and meet him. So I think we got together, or I met you, I don't know, somewhere. This was a long time ago. You told me a bunch of stuff. And I saw you at the birthday party or something last year, but we've lost touch for a long time. And you said you used to manage bands. So Alexis, I'll let you do your intro and catch us up on what you've been up to.
Mordred is the band I spend the most time managing. That was really enjoyable. I managed Testament. I managed them the entire time they were Legacy. I managed Violence for a while. I managed Détente for a little bit with Ross Robinson and Don Crosby. I think those are probably all the bands I managed.
Okay.
And you ran the DNA for a while.
Yeah, I ran the DNA Lounge for 8 years. I was an independent promoter. I brought all the shows to the Trocadero. I did most of the metal shows as a promoter in the Bay Area in the mid to late 90s after Jimmy was done with the Stone and the Omni. I picked up there for a little while. I was on the design team for the Fox Theater in Oakland. I spent a year building the Fox Theater, helped launch Treasure Island Music Festival, and a little bit with Outside Lands. And that was sort of the last stuff I've done in the club industry or the band industry.
And again, also probably what's always the funny thing is you may or may not remember this, but I remember when you and I hooked up at the Omni the first time. There were 3 people that gave me the best advice I heard getting into the booking industry. It was between you, Jason from Chaos of all people, and Harold O. I remember the first time we were sitting at the bar, you and I wasn't even drinking then, and you looked at me and you said, always keep your eyes on the money. And I went, what do you mean? And you're like, just always make sure that you take care of the artist and that you're taking care of yourself. And that stuck with me for many, many years. Of course, I never got taken care of, but at the same time, I attempted to do so.
You know, most people never financially get taken care of. Most people participate because they're enjoying the lifestyle, they're enjoying the adventure, and they know that there's a chance that they might get paid big time because they've seen some other people do it, and there's that sort of pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But the most successful musicians I know weren't necessarily the ones that got the most money, but they're the ones who enjoyed the journey the most.
Right.
And there's a few of those.
You know how you become a millionaire in music, right?
You start with 4 million.
Yeah.
Same with Scuba Diving Shop.
Ouch.
You know what? You're speaking the truth there, because it's like, if it was about the money for me, I would have not even gone beyond the Omni Stone and one step beyond, because it was like there was not really a lot of money. I started making money at the Edge about 3 or 4 years in, but even still, it was like, it wasn't the money I was supposed to be making, but I didn't care because I loved running out front and listening to people walk out of shows going, I just saw 9 Inch Nails at the Edge. Like, that was more of a high to me than being able to buy a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jimmy, can I just give you
work.
sorry, Jimmy, can I just give you props for your Purple Rain poster in the background, bro? I've got a bunch of posters that I want to put on my wall, and my wife's like, no, you're too old for that. And I'm like, dude, shit ain't cool. Yeah. I know, dude. I know. We're having that argument.
Okay.
I know.
Let me see if I can show you here. Watch this one. Here we go. Right there, man. That's my Bonham painting right there. Can you see it?
Nice.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Have you guys, by the way, I don't know how many of you guys actually have record players, but if you do, go and get Purple Rain, the reissue. Holy shit, is it mine?
The reissue that good? Because I have the original pressing.
Dude,
they cleaned it up.
They did something to the mix, dude. I'm going to be brutally honest. By the end of Purple Rain, during that refrain at the very end where it's all the voices and all that stuff, hear so many things that are going on in the mix that you didn't notice before that I was like, I got very emotional listening to that record.
So you can hear it's more layered than previous.
It's just a lot clearer and crisper. Even I just bought the other day, I bought myself a birthday present. I bought Deep Purple.
I saw that. Yeah, dude.
Holy shit,
dude! I went to Streetlight. Like the day after, and I was like, damn, I didn't find anything that I liked. But I'm also kind of a germaphobe, and wearing a mask, I'm like, fuck, I'm like in and out, dude. Just top 5 bands. Nothing. Okay, fuck it, I'm out.
I got that in the Yes 902 one.
Yeah, dude, I saw that.
And dude, the mix on that is like, fuck, yeah, good stuff.
Jimmy, do you listen on your speakers or?
Do I what?
I'm sorry. Do you listen on headphones or speakers? What do you?
Speakers. I've listened on headphones, but sleaze, thank God. The last piece of my record, it took me 2 years to put my record set up together because, it's expensive to put together a stereo. And I found a $35 Denon, an $800 Denon receiver at Goodwill for $35, And then the last piece was Sleaze gave me some old speakers with a 10 and 3 tweets. And the sound is fucking insane. And it's like, I never want to listen to an MP3 again unless I have to, or a CD for that matter. When I sit in between those speakers and I've got it cranked, it sonically just takes me back to being a kid again. And I forgot those tones because MP3s are so compressed, and so many things that are missing from those mixes because of what digital is. It's just weird, but it's amazing.
And when we reopened DNA Lounge in 2001, and put in a pretty good sound system, and
you had one of the best sound systems in the Bay Area. Go fuck yourself.
Well, now they're all better now. Everyone's system is better now. But then it was a pretty good system. And sometimes when I was managing the club, the vibe was wrong in the room, and I'd walk around trying to figure out, well, something's wrong. What's wrong? And I would just walk the room trying to find out why the vibe is off. And I come across some DJ with a MacBook plugged in playing MP3s. And I'm like, it sounds like crap. What are you doing? He's like, well, it sounded good in my living room. And I'm like, yeah, your living room doesn't have subwoofers. Right. And they cut all the frequencies. All the low frequencies aren't on your file. That file is small for a reason because the music's not there.
Right.
I mean, what was the kilobits?
That was a hard lesson to learn.
Was it under 320 kilobits a second?
Even when they call it lossless, it's still not even really.
No, it's still missing. No.
It's still
missing. You need. I mean, FLAC is the only acceptable digital.
Thank you.
That I can accept.
FLACs are missing a little bit of bottom end as well. I love FLAC.
Yes, but as far as digital media, it's the closest you're gonna get. Yeah.
And thank God Google Music accepts FLAC files and doesn't compress.
Jimmy, hang on. You mentioned Google Music. You do know Google Music's retiring, right? So you have to transfer your stuff to YouTube Music. No. It's not live yet, but like maybe July or so, they'll create a link, and it's literally like a one-click button. You log in YouTube/music, you put in your Google account, it'll find your Google Music, or you'll go to settings and just hit import, and it'll do it for you.
You had to drop that on him on his birthday. Come on.
I know. I'm sorry. But it's like, I mean, I'm gonna see Jimmy next week, and nobody's gonna say anything about Google Music, and I'm gonna forget.
It's tough
right?
love. It's
nice.
I don't want him to lose his 50,000 songs or however many he has.
Right? I'm going to rabbit hole, like dumping all my shit to YouTube.
All right. Okay. Well, then I don't use Facebook, so don't at me there. But if you want to chat at me, I'll see it and I'll help you out, dude. If you have any questions.
Cool.
Hey, Alexis.
Yep. Hi, Mark.
Where did you learn your acumen, your business acumen, and your finance and that part?
I'm a ninth grade dropout. Well, first off is. Jimmy, are you broadcasting this at all or archiving it?
I'm not. I have nothing to do with this.
This is a private chat, right?
Okay, no. I'm not broadcasting. Do you need me to pause the recording?
No. I just need to know what version I give you.
It's going to go on.
Oh no.
This is a very limited scope, but.
Thank you.
Anyways, I don't think I'm all that knowledgeable on this stuff regarding. I basically was a ninth grade dropout from a broken family on the edge of homelessness, and I ended up having some friends who were musicians that let me sleep in the studio because I had nowhere else to go. And I said, well, let me be a roadie or something. And I found something I cared about, so I applied myself. And from being a roadie, I became a band manager pretty quickly. And that was the first time I studied. I started, because I also have dyslexia, I was able through my school to get sent to do these music extension courses out at San Francisco State. So I took these recording and performing artist management courses with Al Evers, and I was working with my then attorney, Elliot Kahn, and a few of the other people.
Right, Elliot.
Who was, and other than playing Dungeons and Dragons, it was the first thing I decided to apply myself to and start trying to figure out what all these contracts are. And I had the responsibility of keeping the band's money straight, so I had to learn how to use a 3-column ledger. I didn't learn from anywhere other than the necessity to do it. And if I didn't succeed, I didn't get to play. And if I didn't get to play, I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. That's probably the best answer.
Wow, that's a cool story. Because I mean, you're very respected, well respected. And I wasn't sure what your history was because someone dropped me your name. It's like, you need to talk to Alexis. He knows a lot of stuff. If you're starting out and wanting to do this stuff, maybe you should talk to him. So I remember talking to you.
Somebody told me, the definition of a good deal is one where everyone feels like a winner. And when you can make a deal that feels that way, you have a deal that can keep happening, and you have more referrals, and you can continue working. And when you start cutting deals where you're winning every time and nobody else feels like a winner, nobody wants to work with you ever again. So it's trying to find that right balance where everything works and it can work for a long time, and your reputation will open doors for you.
Devil's advocate. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, from my experience with you and just from hearing like whatever, what their opinion of you, you're respected, and yeah, you've done a great job, and you found that sweet spot, obviously, because people are like referring you like, he's a good authority. If you're going to do this stuff, you should meet this guy. So that's when I think I called you, and you're like, oh, come to, I don't even remember, it was in the city or something. I think it was a long time ago.
I was in Berkeley.
I met with you.
I was in Berkeley at the time. I mean, other things too. It's like in junior high school and stuff, Alex Skolnick was my best friend before he was in any bands. And
really?
Legacy was the first band to ask me to manage them. And I'm like, sure, but can my friend play guitar for you? And I got really lucky by being with the right group of people in the beginning. It was almost sort of like a magic carpet ride, and having the advantages of, relationships with the guys in Exodus and having them go off on tour and pass out demo tapes to really help. Like, I never even tried to find a record deal. Just my phone that only had incoming calls because I couldn't pay the phone bill for outgoing calls. Every day was another record offer coming in, or a magazine wanting to do an interview. And it was because of the social group of having Exodus and Metallica there and supporting and making all the introductions. It really just all came together. It was just a responsibility of having follow through and not screwing up, and then building on what happened. I think anybody could have done it that just kept the follow through and kept it honest. I don't think there's anything more to it than that.
Keeping it honest.
Right place at the right time.
Keeping it honest is the biggest point, yeah, because a lot of people back then were being kind of shady. We know the people that were being shady. I mean, it's like funny because I also think that you're one of the first cats that ever walked up to me and said, "We're settling before the band goes on stage," which was like, okay, because
I don't recall doing that, but it could be. I mean, honestly, I learned from a lot of those guys that are now considered to be shady.
Well, you learn what not to do.
Well, I also learned what to do because there wasn't a lot of role models at the time.
Yeah. So who did you? Was there any mentors? Who did you work with, or who did you learn from?
I learned from people like Jeff Weller, Adam Segan, Tony Isabella. Later, Bobby and Freddie over at the Stone. I learned from people like Elliot Kahn and Al Evers and Barry Simons as well. I don't know if anybody here knows any of these names, but they were parts of the music industry in the Bay Area. And my time really started around 1985, and I probably stopped doing band management, I don't know, 94, 95.
God, I haven't heard Tony Isabella's name in so fucking long, dude. You just, like, a whole bunch of memories just came flooding back into my head.
I heard at the Murder in the Front Row second class citizen preview.
Wow.
It was fun to hang out with her and Rachel Matthews.
Rachel Matthews, holy shit. Rachel Matthews, Capitol Records, yeah? Big.
Yeah, she was A&R at Capitol Records.
So Rachel Matthews and I met, ironically, before I started working for the Omni. I was the product buyer for Warehouse Records in Northern California. And they flew us down to Warehouse Records, and she was their heavy music person. And we ended up going out to lunch. And that was the precursor to me going, wow, maybe I should start booking a nightclub. And like probably 6 months later, I started working at the Omni. She had a lot to do with igniting my, like, well, I know all these bands and I know that I could put shows together for them. That's really crazy that you had that affiliation with her as well. Wow, what a powerhouse she became.
That's cool.
Jimmy, booking shows with you was like, in any of the bands that I worked with, when you were at Rock Bar, they would say, hey, do you think you can get us something? And I would say, it's 5 text messages. They'd say, what do you mean? And I would text Jimmy and say, hey, we want to play a show on this date. And he would text back and go, yeah, okay, cool. I'd say, what's the money? He'd say this, and I'd say done. It was 5 text messages. Or a phone call, like a 5-minute phone call. Done.
This is one of the best conversations I've had in a long time. It's so cool that you cats are here, man. This is fucking cool as shit, dude.
Love you.
Happy birthday, motherfucker.
Alexis showing up. Holy shit, I haven't seen you face to face in how long now, dude?
It's been a minute. I don't even remember the last time. I'm kind of curious. There's 3 gentlemen here in this conversation that I don't personally know, and I'd love to know who each of you are.
Yeah, there's one person I was going to say. Who's Spare? Spare, who? Introduce yourself.
That me?
Yep.
I'm Clank. I'm a friend of Jimmy's.
Oh, okay.
He's in the band Clank.
Yeah, I know the name.
Friend, really cool band.
Very cool.
We go way back. He's also good friends with Doug from King's X. In fact, we had a barbecue at a house 4 or 5 years ago. There was a lot of weed and a lot of barbecue happening that night.
And Doug almost passing out after hitting the hash pipe a little too hard was all.
with Doug, no way. Come on, not Doug.
Yeah, because he was on his knees in the studio, and then he puts his head up and his eyes roll across, and he goes, "You didn't tell me that was hash." It's so funny.
Dude, I showed up to Clank's pad on, I think it was a Saturday, and I showed up late, and I walked in, and Doug was holding court telling a story, Friday or Saturday, and he was telling a story, and he hadn't even realized I rolled into the room, and I hadn't seen Doug in person since they played The Edge, so it was quite a while. And he's like, and we ended up hanging out on Clank's back patio for like till 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, just telling stories and eating ribs and just fucking chilling, and it was fucking amazing.
Yeah. And then when you were like, hey, I don't know if you remember, you're like, I booked you, and then he got up and he gave you the biggest hug. He was like, oh my God, I thought you looked familiar. Yeah, that was, he's an old friend, so I'd asked him, I said, hey man, we're doing an album, and there's this one song I'd like you to sing on if you're interested. And it was kind of like throwing a long shot out there. I said, if you're interested, let me know. And he goes, all right, when are you thinking of recording? So I told him, and then he said, let me hit you back. And then he said, I have my schedule open from here to here. And he ended up spending 6 days on my couch. And it was like, it was just so awesome. It was like the best, because we turned him on to like Torchwood and some other TV shows. And it was funny because we were prepping ribs in the kitchen, and he comes over and he pushes me, he goes, move out the way, white boy. I'll show you how it's done. So, and then he wouldn't even let me touch. It was a grill I got for my birthday, and he wouldn't even let me touch it. He goes, I'll show you how this is done. And he cooked everything.
It's crazy, Doug. I got a great story about Doug. So when he played The Edge one time with King's X, and I was going through my divorce, and he knew I was having a rough time, and we talked and chilled and whatever. And so then, and it was right before they played Woodstock, the new Woodstock. And the day of Woodstock, I got a postcard in the mail but he had written it the day that they were playing Woodstock, and he said, "Hey, this is Doug. I hope you're doing well. Here's my phone number if you ever need to chat." And the day he's playing Woodstock, I'm in his head, and I'm like, I'm a talent buyer. Like, we don't hang out and have lunch. Like, this guy is thinking about me in my life right now, and he's about to play one of the biggest shows ever. You know, it's like, for him, it's like, so yeah, the cat that Doug is one of a kind. Just amazing.
I tell you what, years back, being a King's X fan, we used to write to his address at Katy, Texas, and when the debut Circle of Dust album came out, we sent him a copy. And he sent back a postcard, and he said, he goes, "I'm a huge Nine Inch Nails fan." He goes, "I've had the Nine Inch Nails one in my disc player in my car for an extended period of time." He goes, "I put your disc in it." He goes, "I can't take it out. It's been in there for months." And I was like, wow, that's authentic. We're not working.
Yeah.
At the time, I was still living on Long Island, and they came to Hofstra University. And I showed up early with one of my best friends, and I had the postcard with me, and I said, let's see if we can get in. That was the beginning when I was trying to sneak my way and make my way in. And I knocked on the door, and the security guard's like, "What's up?" And I said, "Hey, is there any way I can come in and talk to Doug?" He's like, "Oh, they're sound checking, they're busy." I said, "Here, show him this." So I handed him the postcard. He comes back, and it's so funny because there's some dudes from high school that was standing there, and they're like, "He's never going to let you in. You're nobody. You're nobody. You're nobody." And he comes to the door, and he goes, "Oh, Doug says come on in. They're almost done with sound check, and he wants to talk to you. So come right over here and stand on the side." So I was like, "Later, bitches." And it was just really cool. And that night, Doug gave me his phone number. We need to stay in touch, blah, blah, blah. And then he ended up calling me like every Thanksgiving for like the next 4 or 5 years. I'd always get that random call for Doug, and we'd talk for like a long time, all because sending him music and then just writing a couple of letters about my past, his past. We were kind of comparing notes, and it just always stuck a chord with me. I said, man, for somebody who's so nice and down to earth, at that point, was it Ear Candy or whatever had come out? They were already working with Brendan O'Brien, and they were big, and it was like, here's a dude that he's always so down to earth. Every story I've ever heard about him was, he's always the same. He's never a jerk to people. He's always awesome. And even because of him hanging out at NAMM a couple of years later, he was taking us, because he had a cane that year because he had some leg issues. And he's like, "Oh, hang out with me. We'll just float around." So he was like, dude, we went over, we talked to Bootsy Collins. We ran into the Deftones guys. What's his name? Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater. And Chad Smith. And he was just like, "Oh, these are my friends, blah, blah, blah." And it was just really awesome. Really, really great memories. I'll never forget,
That's cool.
Dude, I have a crazy story. I ended up finding out me and Doug connected on Mother's Finest. Because
shit.
We had a mutual love for Mother's Finest.
Shit.
And
shit.
Omni, and I still had Wizard's fucking phone number. So I ended up calling up Wizard, the bass player, and going, "Hey, by the way, Doug Pinnock from King's X is a huge fucking fan." He's all, "I fucking love King's X," and connected the two of them. And they're still they were talking through that day. I don't even know if Wizard's still alive, but back then they had a phone conversation, and they remained in touch after that because,
Hey, Wizard's alive, man. I follow him on social media.
It's still happening. I'm only hooked up with Baby Gene Kennedy and what's his face, the guitar player. But I'm not connected with Wizard.
It's that Another Mother Further. That record is one of the best records ever in history. Fuck. I mean,
17th band with a white drummer and a white guitar player. Fucking. Do you remember have you ever seen the Don Kirshner rock concert?
Yeah.
Performance?
Oh yeah. They ripped, dude. And Michael Anthony, because I was buddies with Michael Anthony forever, he was telling me that he was on tour with Van Halen. They were staying in some, fucking Holiday Inn somewhere or whatever, and Mother's Finest was playing in the lounge. And he went down there and he got to sit in with them. And he was like, and he was a huge Mother's Finest fan. That's how I found out about them. He was playing Mother's Finest for me. He's like, "You got to listen to this band." And I was like, all right, holy shit, dude. But yeah, he sat in with them, and he was like, I was in so over my head, and I didn't even care because it was so good.
Yeah. Those cats. I had a guy when I worked with Young American Showcase out of Florida. There was one of the staff members was Lance Abear, and he used to play saxophone for them on the side when they played Atlanta, Georgia. And when he found out I was a Mother's Finest fan at camp when we were getting ready to tour. And he ended up sitting down with me and saying that those cats were so heavy that they would sit around in a circle before they even got in their instruments, and they would practice their breathing at the same time, and then move over to the instrument and then get into the funk. And it was just like, what?
Well, what about the backing tracks, though? Just kidding. So, because, dude, who does that shit? And it's, I love that. I love hearing that. Yeah.
If you have not seen Mother's Finest, watch them on YouTube at Rock Palast. Holy shit, you'll be floored.
Just
Kennedy, when she played the Edge. March and I have had this conversation before. Angela Davis, the Black Revolutionary, showed up. That's a whole other story. But Baby Jean Kennedy was playing a corded 58, and holding it at arm's length and crushing the diaphragm with so much air that it was distorting the mic. It was like, what in the fuck? And she's like 5 foot nothing.
In Baby Love, the way it comes in after the solo and that vocal is so soulful and just fucking amazing.
Don't.
Dude. Anyway, enough. I just,
Sorry. We just kind of freaked out.